Hello, everyone. It is the day after Thanksgiving. So glad to be here in lunch therapy. I think I need some lunch therapy today because I, smashed way too many pumpkins yesterday. But I'm feeling pretty good because today we have a circus ringmaster on the show, the amazing Johnathan Lee Iverson. And I'm just so glad to have him here, and we're going to learn what it is to be a circus ringmaster, and we're going to have some fun. So let's get into it. Hey, Guy Fly, how's your eye? I'm going to get myself a modem. 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 All right, so I've got some really, calming things for you here up in the beginning because I know the holidays can be stressful, and this season is definitely testing the bounds of stress. I've got Jose here. I've got surfing video behind us. Kamala is excited to meet Mr. Iverson. Hola, Jose. The clowns are arriving. Luckily, we have one of the clowns here, Vernus Clear. We have a lot of other clowns as well. Cult of the Hummingbird. Loving the graphics, yeah. So, we try and bring it. We try and bring it here at Lunch Therapy. For those of you who have never been to Lunch Therapy before, this is a show that is very communal. It's a community show where we can kind of keep each other in touch with one another and also get some entertainment, some laughs. We bring on all kinds of comedians. We bring on clowns. Sometimes we bring on ringmasters. Hey, whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes. Today is Interview Friday, where we interview a fascinating member of the world community. And today is no exception because we're interviewing Johnathan Lee Iverson, who is the first African-American ringmaster for the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. And then also he was the youngest ringmaster from what I understand. So it's a pretty incredible story. So what we're going to do at the top of the show, which is what we always do, is we're going to take in 3 breaths. And that's to relax us and to give us stamina for the rest of the day. So in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. And this is not to be taken lightly, this breathing thing, because apparently you need to breathe all the time. And during the show, we try and breathe more than usual because we got to get that oxygen in. So in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Upper right here or upper left. I don't know. I can't tell. Let it go. There's a cat warming itself by the fire. We have a lot of resident cats in the show. This happens to be Belle. She lives in Washington State. Just to kind of give you inspiration for relaxation, inspiration. And then, of course, we have people surfing, which that is a real extra added value. Look at that guy surfing out there. All right, we're moving on because we've got an interview. And I want to get to it. And I don't want to waste any time. Matt has been thinking about how breathing is not a given these days. It's worth appreciating. It is not, exactly. This is a place where we appreciate breathing. And if you're having trouble breathing, see a doctor, of course. But also, you can come here and work out your breath because you want to keep it going, Where is that surfing happening? All over the world. All right, let's get into it. I got a couple things to show you before we get to Johnathan. Here we go. I wanted to say, if somebody's, really cooped up in quarantine, invite them here, because this is a good place for us to connect with other people and also see some wonderful armadillos frolicking in the flowers. This is in Oregon. This is the Oregon Zoo. This is an armadillo frolicking among the cloves and flowers. Please go to Oregon Zoo YouTube channel and just subscribe away, and also go to their website, donate some money, because they put out these great videos. They're very therapeutic, and they're just a wonderful way to keep connected with the animals, Smashing Pumpkins, etc. Will there be surfing in Bali? When we go to Bali, anybody is invited to come with us to Bali next year to make up for this year. And I imagine there will be surfing there as well. All right, so it's time now to get ourselves into the interview and out of the frolicking in the clovers and flowers. Let's get into this. This is Johnathan, Lee Iverson, and here we go. Interview Friday, ladies and gentlemen.
Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey is a template for world peace, whether we're ringmasters, trapeze artists, animal trainers, or crew members. And we all come together and we make something magnificent to share with others. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, the Feld family is proud to present Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Welcome to the greatest show on earth!
Johnathan Lee Iverson. I am so happy to have him here. He is a person who is he's the first African-American ringmaster. He was a ringmaster with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, as well as other circuses, I believe. He came out of the boys' choir in Harlem, the Harlem Boys Choir, right? Uh-huh. And that was where you were discovered, essentially. He was on the trajectory to be an opera singer, but somehow found himself in the center ring of the greatest show on earth. Welcome
Absolutely.
To Lunch Therapy, Johnathan.
That wasn't too bad. I'm gonna, that's why I'm gonna start a coaching series.
Jonathan made me nervous because before I started the show, he said, I'm a ringmaster, so I don't know. I got a really high bar.
Well, introductions, that's my thing. Listen, I really appreciate you welcoming me onto your show. Yeah. And I really love the fact that you began this show, as most creatives do, to really keep your sanity.
Yes.
And that's what we do. No matter what it is, I am in the same boat as you. Yeah. I created a talk show myself entitled In Center Ring,
yes,
which airs on YouTube and it airs on my Facebook page as well. And, I'm in episode 27 this evening. Which features personalities from the circus world. And I'm also going to really start broadening it out and featuring just people I'm really interested in speaking with, and I think a broader audience would love to hear from. But like you, my friend, when you have creative things going on, your mind is always going 150 miles per hour. Yeah. And when the world turns upside down, that's when the creatives come out and show out and start digging for new things. So it's really exciting to be here, and I really appreciate it.
Don't you think that that's part of being a creative person, is that you create new ways of doing things? That sometimes adversity is the thing that is a catalyst for your creativity.
Oh yeah, I mean, as I tell everyone, we have to accept the seasons of life, and whether you're in the valley or you're on the mountaintop, life is what it is. And we have a responsibility to fortify ourselves at all times, like the good ant. No matter what season it is, that ant, is very aware and behaves accordingly.
Yeah.
And we have to do that. We have to do that in our spiritual lives. We have to do that in our mental fortitude mostly. Of course, our physical health as well, because, listen, the good old book do say, build your house on a rock. So when the storm comes, I always love those words of Jesus, because Jesus was a pretty interesting character, because it's the only religious figure that ever came with a disclaimer.
What's the disclaimer?
Well, he tells you throughout scripture,
Yeah.
oh, you're going to have problems. They hated me, they'll hate you. You tell them, I'm homeless. I'm
Yeah.
homeless. People hate me. You really
Yeah.
want to follow me? Yeah, that's a good disclaimer. It's like, yeah, all right. I mean, like, you read it. He had I think he had well over several hundred disciples, but a lot of them just fell off. They were like,
Yeah.
can't do that.
Can't handle that.
So, I'm not going to sit up here and preach, but it's just really
Yeah.
interesting to me. And I look at life the same way. It's hard. I don't know. It's been quite the adventure these last 7 months in every conceivable way. Artistically, I look at my colleagues in all of the fields, whether it be circus or theater or the amusement parks. It's been very, very hard, whether it's, those who do coaching and public speaking. And for anybody in live events and live entertainment, it has been a tremendous hit. And it's really causing us to really, reassess.
Dig deep.
Yeah, dig deep and take advantage of these doggone computers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. We're all going to become masters of the computer.
It's more than Facebook. Oh, okay. Yeah.
We at our house, we briefly had something called the digital Ringmaster, which was we got together a group of fellow actors and filmmakers, and we would come up with skits and video them and then put them online. Of course, the partying became much more important than the videoing, but it was a great name and a great concept. It fell apart, I think, because of social reasons, but it was a great name. And, now you are the digital Ringmaster, I believe.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of virtual hosting and moderating, and creating my own show has been its own wonderful adventure.
Yeah.
And it's just, listen, the only constant is change, and you either change or die, and evolution is real, whether you like it or not. And it will happen with or without you.
Yeah.
It's pruning season. That's how I see it. And we go through these stages in life, and sometimes it surprises you. Sometimes you can feel it coming on. But, again, it comes back to the decisions we make, whether it's something that's imposed upon you, like it was for me well over 3 years ago. Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, 146 years old, wasn't supposed to ever close. We used to have boastful executives walking around backstage talking about, this will be here forever.
Yeah.
This will never close. They were saying that only months before they announced we're closing.
What can you tell me what happened? Because I don't even know. When it happened, we were all pretty stunned.
Money, lack of money, lack of funds. It always comes down to money.
Do you think it was mismanagement, or do you think?
No, I wouldn't say it was mismanagement.
Yeah.
Feld Entertainment, the Felds are exceedingly smart people. And even right now, if any live entertainment venue is going to really make a comeback, with regards to any of the big companies, and that includes Disney.
Yeah.
Feld Entertainment will figure this out.
Really?
They're remarkably smart people. They're remarkably resourceful as well. So they will figure it out. But I don't think it was personal mismanagement. I just think, somehow, some way, we became a bit disconnected from our audience to a degree. I wouldn't say it to our audience, but to just the general public, period. Also, the public itself, you take things like these great American treasures for granted.
Yeah.
because they're always around. Oh, it'll be
Right.
there. And that's
Yeah.
what I heard from everybody when we suddenly, overnight, when they made the announcement, we became Hamilton. All of a sudden, every show was sold out. And
Yeah.
people were like, oh, man, I kept saying year after year, oh, I'll go next year. Oh, I'll go
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard a lot of. Of course, we had a severe and incredible drop after, when when they announced the elephants were leaving the road. I was like, okay, this is over.
Really?
Because nobody comes to a circus for two-legged mammals. They just don't. Okay, people come for four-legged mammals. They'll always come for the four-legged mammals, and
Animals, it's tough. It's tough to compete with animals, I'll tell you. On our
yeah,
show, we have as many
animals
animals
and
as
children.
possible because animals make people happy.
That's it. Animals and children, man. You can't
Yeah.
compete with that. I don't care how gifted you are, man. You
I
let
had the
four-legged
Ringling
mammals
Brothers
come out.
poster in my room when I was a kid, and of course it was a tiger. It was that
Yeah.
big tiger, So
Yeah,
cool.
well, that's why the greatest performer, arguably, in the history of Ringling Brothers was the great Gunther Gable Williams. And not because he was the great Gunther Gable Williams. Well, he was a marvel of
Yeah.
a human being and an artist. I had the privilege of knowing him the last 3 years of his life, and he was everything you would want your favorite star to be. He was a gentleman. He was funny. He was, he was a little mischievous. But he was a hard worker, and he really lived that kind of ideal life where he was doing exactly what God had formed him to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that was animals. And he had great success because he just really knew his craft. And I saw it with my own eyes, how the animals responded to him and respected him, even animals who weren't necessarily in his care directly. He had a real, true gift. And I'm just glad the world got to see it. And I was privileged to know him, know his family. I'm in contact with his family. They're just regal people. They're very, very just proud of their wonderful legacy, and as they should be. And it was just great to know him. But the animals, they're number one. They're number one.
Yeah.
That's what makes it all work
Love
out.
animals. Now, I want to know what the role of the ringmaster is in the circus, and I also want to know, are you the leader of the circus? Because I know the circus is, everybody talks about the circus as a family, and I wanted to find out what the role of the ringmaster is in that family.
Well, technically speaking, the ringmaster is the de facto voice and face of the circus. His history is that he is an equestrian director, which is why you see him in the riding boots and pants and the tails and top hat. So he's an equestrian by trade. He would advance, of course. He might be the show's owner. Usually he would be a show owner, maybe a general manager. He was always in some position of authority, just simply for the fact that he would be announcing or presenting all of the acts. So there was always that air of authority there. He's not necessarily doing anything unbelievable, It's just his presence, which is powerful enough.
Yeah.
Depending on the type of ringmaster you get. I mean, it's it's quite magnetic, and I think it's really the energy and the aura. And in my case, I always felt I drew energy from my colleagues. I mean, these are people doing supernatural things.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really hard, in my opinion. People would compliment me a lot. I'm like, look, I got the easy job. I'm a glorified fan who gets paid to dress well and run my mouth. That's what I.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I have read things that said you were like the rock star of ringmasters. You were, something about your presence was above what they had seen before. That's what I've read.
Well, a lot of that may have had to do with the fact that, again, first and foremost, I was working for the greatest show on earth, and they purported themselves that way. And the annals of performers, I was definitely spoiled. I mean, you have to realize all of our shows were built from the ground up. So that meant my costumes were custom made, just like my songs were custom created. So I would have meetings with the composer and the
So you
lyricist.
sang as a ringmaster as well?
Mhm.
Oh,
We
wow. Is
had,
that normal for ringmasters?
at Ringling Brothers, it was.
Hmm.
We had Ringling Brothers has a rich musical tradition,
Mm-hmm.
rich musical tradition. And the original singing ringmaster was a gentleman by the name of Harold Ronk. And Howard Ronk was brilliant. He was wonderful. He was trained like me, like a classical singer, which, quite frankly, you have to be to do that job. There were other wonderful singers like Eric Michael Gillette, who leaned more toward theater, but he was a masterful singer himself. And there were others also, but yeah, you had to sing live, you had to announce. And we would have these wonderful meetings with the composer and the lyricist, and we would go over range and the musical director, and they would craft songs in accordance to my strengths. So it wasn't really hard for me to be a so-called rock star. I mean, they were playing on my strengths, and I didn't, which was great. It made me look wonderful, and quite frankly, it worked for the show. And I also had the privilege, though, of, drawing energy from the world's greatest artists. It's hard not to come out there and be enthusiastic when your coworkers can fly and talk to animals and do daring things. You would have to be a utter loser to not enjoy yourself in that kind of environment. And plus, you're around like the most beautiful and gorgeous people who are just flexible and just stunning and tough. I mean, you kidding me? It's like going into a beautiful dream every day. I mean, so I had a great, and I mean, somebody else was paying for it. Wonderful. It was a wonderful time, and that role, in and of itself, being in that kind of environment, I had no choice but to be inspired to stretch myself, to do more things to promote the show, because that's the thing too. You're not just performing, you're really the face and voice of the show. So I did a lot of interviews like these.
Wow.
I always called it the poor man's presidential campaign, because you're always campaigning, you're always out somewhere speaking to the press, or speaking at a after school program, or in a school, or something that is promoting the goodwill and the joyful nature that is the greatest show on earth, or was the greatest show on earth, and just circus society in general.
Now, I've heard the thing where performers should be interested rather than interesting. You should always focus on being interested, and that's kind of what you're saying too. Is that your joy for the theater, for the circus, and your enthusiasm for it is the thing that you're kind of sharing with the audience, and you bring them along as well. That sounds.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Like
I think that's the key. It's the key to everything. I think that's a life skill. If you're interested in it, then that's really, I think, 70% of the work.
I think that's true about any profession that you happen to take on. If you're going to take on a profession, it's much better if you're interested, because not just go for the money, but go for the thing that's going to keep your interest the longest, because that's what you're going to be best at.
Right. It's hard not to be interested in a bunch of dynamic people, who could just do incredible things, and who continue to evolve their skill and to wow you year after year. I mean, because the one thing we always joked about with our environment, our community, is that you never have a boring day. No show. People would ask me, "Oh, did you have a script?" Yeah, I had a script, but I just looked at it as just an archetype. That's all it was. I mean, did I follow it? Of course not, because the show is a living, breathing thing. Yeah, and so
that's what's great about live performance, I think.
Yeah,
is that you never know what's going to happen, and that's what's part of the fun. In a show. Part of the thing that pulls a TV show or whatever, part of the thing that pulls you along is you're like, I wonder what's going to happen. But with any live performance, you're like, wow, anything could happen.
With a circus, it goes up even higher, because I mean, you have people literally putting their lives in peril,
on the line.
To make you laugh, and doing it wonderfully. That's a thrill for everyone. I always had the best seat in the house. That's how I saw it.
So, okay, what happens in the circus if something goes terribly wrong and somebody gets hurt? What does the ringmaster do at that point? Does that ever
Well,
happen? Has that ever
oh
happened to
yeah,
you? Yeah.
it happened to me, and quite terribly. You know, there was a show where we had a beautiful act. It was a hair hanging act, and they were about 25 feet in the air. It was about eight aerialists, and the apparatus collapsed. I don't know what the source of it was, but it was
Wow.
just so shocking. And what happens to you, at least for me as a ringmaster, and one of the
Hmm.
skills you have is you have to be able to cover,
Yeah.
no matter what the circumstances are. And um, you're not alone because there's a whole staff of people who are working behind the scenes, watching every
Hmm.
second of the show as well, who will call certain things and call on certain performers, usually clowns, to come on out and to distract,
Hmm.
who will coordinate with the music director who's conducting the band to distract with the music, come up with something.
Yeah.
And so this was the worst thing that had ever happened in my career. And how we dealt with it was, quite frankly, the art of collaboration, not only amongst ourselves with staff and performers, but the first responders at this particular venue. It was in Rhode Island
Mm.
at the Dunkin' Donut Center. And the first responders were just amazing, amazing. It was like you looked up and it was like the Justice League had descended upon us,
Really?
and it was wonderful. And
Wow.
their timing couldn't have been more perfect
Yeah.
because a couple of the young ladies who had uh, fallen were in serious, serious, serious trouble.
Wow.
And fortunately, as far as I know, everyone is they're somewhat recovered. They're doing well. Not all are performing anymore, but
Yeah.
what should have been far worse,
Mm.
which I just assumed when they fell. I just assumed there would be a few fatalities, but
Yeah.
fortunately they weren't. There were not, and
Wow.
many of the young ladies have gone on to have full lives,
Hmm.
have children, and move on with their lives. So I know there's some legal issues that are being worked out as well
Mm.
with regards to that. So I'm not really privy to that, but
Yeah.
that was the worst thing that happened. And when you're in that type of situation, the mind does. You're set up. I am convinced that we are set up to succeed because, and I've heard this about people who experience trauma, like it's like your mind separates from your body. So it's
Mm.
almost like a out of body experience to
Yeah.
protect you. Or
Mm.
like, they've said it like with burn victims, it's like the body goes to sleep, like the skin goes to sleep,
Wow.
when they're
Hmm.
recovering. Richard Pryor joked about it in one of his classic stand-ups. Such a genius, because I
Oh
don't
my
know how you
gosh.
turn that into a joke, but when
Yeah.
he'd been very open about
Yeah.
his drug issue, and he had ended up burning himself, and
Yeah.
he talked about going through that recovery process and how agonizing it was. But he was saying how like it's like the body goes to sleep
Hmm.
or something to keep you from having to really deal with that pain, so to speak, in its fullness, which is remarkable. And I think the mind does that, because the thing about circus society is I'm dealing with, it was like instinctive. My mind, when it happened, it instinctively moved me away from my friends to just be the ringmaster.
Mm.
Because what hurt most, of course, when everything was settled down, was that were we realized. I mean, they were the nucleus of the show. Everybody somehow had an emotional tie,
Hmm.
a deep emotional tie to each and every one of the women in that particular act. So it was ironic. They were in the middle of the show, literally.
Yeah.
They were placed in the middle of the show, and everyone was really cheering them because that was a brand new act. No one in the world had ever done it before. I watched them the previous year, build their bodies up, condition their hair, whatever they had to do, build the actual apparatus, go through different versions of it to get it there. And so it was a journey for all of us. So it was something that we were all looking forward to seeing the innovation of it. And when that happened, it was just, I had to separate myself from, oh my goodness, there's my one of my great friends, or there's my daughter's babysitter, or like, there goes that young lady, me and her, she coaches me on certain, when we went to Mexico, there was one, she was coaching me on Spanish, and so I couldn't be in that place.
Well, it's like what a doctor does, they have to think straight. They can't, because if they were to actually think about the ramifications of what's going on or get so personally involved, they wouldn't be able to perform the surgery. It'd just be too difficult.
Right.
So you have to kind of disconnect and become calm. And some people I feel like some people have the ability to do that. I don't know if everybody does that in that kind of situation.
Well, it's not a conscious thing. But it's the conscientious thing you do is let it happen.
Yeah.
Because your mechanism actually wants it to happen. It really does. I mean, it's what happens to I saw a documentary on the making of that movie, The Equalizer, with Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
And it was, I hope you're not picking that up.
That's just a little bit, but it's not bad.
Okay. But The Equalizer with Denzel Washington, and the director Antoine Fuqua was speaking about how he had colleagues who were into special forces and who had done black ops work.
Yeah.
And in Mr. Washington's research, they studied, well, what happens when you're in those kind of extreme situations? And there's a part in the movie where he filmed it brilliantly, where you just look at his pupil, it would dilate. So the camera would do this close up to his pupil once he's about to have one of these violent scenes. And there was just this calm. And I think that is something that, quite frankly, it's an instinct in the mechanism. I think it's just an instinct you have. I think fear and so we get in the way of it, but it's there if you just
interesting. I've been looking at getting what I call getting my mind right as a performer, because I don't want to, because I would have panic attacks. And, panic attacks just feel like an out-of-body experience. I don't know if it has any relation to what you're talking about, but I was trying to figure out, like, how can I be calm in what my body is seeing or my mind is somehow seeing as a life or death situation.
Accept it.
Yeah, I think you have to accept it. That's one of the things I've come up with. Like, if I'm like sweating profusely or something, or I'm shaking or whatever, you're just like, well, let's see how much we can do that.
Well, I learned it from Stephanie Monsieur of the Bindlestiff Family Circus, she was a ringmaster at the Big Apple Circus. Yeah. And she told me one time, she said, she used to have just tremendous stage fright. And she was taught that, she said, it's not fright, it's energy coming through you.
Yeah.
And your job really is to give it away.
Yeah.
What it is what we're trying to do. And I know this sounds a bit hokey.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to control.
Yeah.
Because we want to know everything, what's going to go. It's not in your control. The best improvisation, that's why it's improv. Nobody knows. They don't know what they're going to say. The best freestyle rapping, they don't know what they're going to do. Freeform writing, that's what it is. Just leave your consciousness to itself.
It takes a lot of guts.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's just a step of courage or faith.
Yeah. And
you just leave it alone. And it's really, I guess, because I was in a situation, and I had been in several, not as violent as that one was.
Yeah.
But I'd been in situations where, you just go. And I don't know what happened. I don't know why I did it or why the thing happened. And people would ask me when I come back, say, oh my gosh, how'd you cover that? I mean, I said, I don't know. I just, I just do it. I just let it happen, because if I start thinking, well, maybe if I should, what if it's your mind, it's really fascinating, because I think I read somewhere recently where it said your mind really, it's neither for your good or your bad. It's just really there for you to work it as it should. be
Yeah.
worked. It's like fear. The great boxing trainer Customato said, you have to learn to manipulate fear. Fear,
Oh,
if you think about it, it's like fire. It can light your way. It can heat your food, um, or it could, if you let it take you over, it can drive you crazy or even kill you. He called it. He said, fear is a friend to exceptional people. And he would always use the analogy of the hero and the coward. He said they both feel the same exact thing. It's just the choices they make. And it's really true. And that is a practice. That's why
yeah.
we do practice. That's why practice is so important. Um, sure, it's never the real thing, because no matter how much you practice, when you get to the real thing,
Yeah.
there's just new energy there. But
Yeah.
a good sound practice and being trained correctly uh, steadies you in a way. So when you get there and you go through the butterflies, what have you, what happens is once you see your practice is actually efficient in the performance,
Hmm.
it's a confidence builder like no other. I'm in that
Yeah.
place now. I'm in that space now, where I walk on any stage anywhere in the world and feel nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've just been through it, and that's just experience. You're
Yeah.
going to have it, you're going to go through it, but really what's going through people's minds on a very, very basic level is your ego.
Yeah.
You're not afraid, you just don't want to be embarrassed. you know
Exactly.
and the way I've told actors I've worked with since my time at Ringling, I said, listen, so what? You're not on a 40-foot rig somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
You miss a line, okay.
Yeah.
You'll live. The worst thing that's going to happen to you is you'll get a bad review and you'll feel humiliated. But if you put it into perspective, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad the real first big thing that happened to me was a circus, because it just humbled me like you would never believe, because you put things in perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not on a high wire
Right.
30 feet in the air where
Yeah.
I have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I have to be perfect to do my act. A comedian bombs on a joke. Well, okay.
Yeah. It's not life or
All
death.
It's not life or death. You get up again, you can write a new joke, you can
Yeah.
figure out what didn't work. You'll be fine. And
Yeah.
if people would, I think the more we confront our ego and even learn to manage that, because it's good to have the ego. Mike Krzyzewski, the great
You have to have it. You have to
yeah,
have it. Maybe it's like fear. You have to learn to
yes,
manipulate
you
it.
learn to manage it. You learn to manipulate. You learn to. It's all good. It's like money. Money's good. You just got to learn how to use it. You have
Yeah.
to become educated about it, and not let it. As P.T. Barnum said, he said, money's a horrible, horrible master, but a great servant. You just don't let those things master you.
Yeah.
As the good book do say, when God confronted Cain, he told him, look, sin is crouching at your door, but you must learn to master it. He didn't tell him to overcome it.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said you have to learn to master it, because it's always going to be there. Just learn to master it. And that's really where the work is. That's why
Yeah.
we rehearse and we study others. We study other masters of the past to pick out what they did that might work with our mechanism and how we can make it our own. That's why the real grind is that. It's not so much perfection, because you'll never get there, nor do you want to get there.
Yeah.
You want to always be in a constant state of progression.
Yeah.
And so then you find the joy in that laboratory. It's okay, so what can I do now? All right, that
Yeah.
joke may have hit and it may have been great. I may be able to use it. How can I expand upon it?
Yeah.
How can I take it how can I be a little daring here?
Yeah.
And that's where you work out those kinks. I don't think the nerves, they settle with experience. And that's why I believe that anyone pursuing a performing career, anything, whatever it is, whether it's circus, whether it's opera, whether it's stand-up comedy. And stand-up comedy, by the way, I think is the closest daring thing to circus. Because I really, because everybody can laugh.
Yeah.
Everybody knows when something's funny.
Yeah.
I think stand-up comedians are beautifully crazy.
Yeah, totally.
And so, yeah,
There's the guy who hugs the lions. There's a video where the lions come and the guy hugs them, and they're like, that guy had a friend who was a stand-up comedian. And
Yeah.
he said to the stand-up comedian, he's like, "Oh, I would never do that. That's terrifying."
That's the truest thing in the world. It's so funny. You meet people like I used to have these folks in the circus come up to me, and of course anybody who's that brilliant at what they do dangerously, they have other interests.
Yeah.
They would always be talking about my voice or something. Man, how do you do that? Oh, your voice. And I'm going, what do you can fly. Like, hey, what do you but
Yeah.
I got what they were saying.
Yeah.
It was so funny. I really started understanding. I have a wonderful friend of mine. She's Russian, and we look like Mutt and Jeff because she's so tiny, and I'm like 6'4".
Yeah.
And but she is one of these. She comes from that great Russian school where she can do anything with her body, and she would always nudge me about, oh, your voice, I wish I could sing like you. I'm like, what are you talking about? You can fly, you can do daring things. But she said, we talked about how we got there, and it was very similar. My upbringing, I had a mean teacher. I had a mean but brilliant teacher.
Yeah.
We say mean with a wink.
Yeah.
He wasn't like a horrible person, but
Yeah.
he was tough,
Yeah.
and he was brilliant. And she had the same dynamic with her training. She said, I couldn't get away with anything. And my teacher was so tough on me. And she would tell me, really, the more I progress, I'm like this because I know what your potential is.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to let up. And my voice
Yeah.
teachers were always the same way. They batter you and then they give you ice cream.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not ice cream because they didn't want to coat the voice, but
Okay, so tell me, I have a lot of questions about the circus, but I think I need to move forward. My question now is how are you moving forward now, and what does the future look like for you? I know it's sort of uncertain, but I don't know. There it is. There's the question.
No, listen, I was wonderful. I was invited. I was pleasantly surprised to be invited to join the board of directors for a beautiful upcoming. The organization exists. It's called Omnium, and it's brand new. It was created this year during the pandemic, and it's a bold new circus. It's the brainchild of one Lisa B. Lewis, and it works in tandem with the dialogue that has been rippling through not only circus, but the performing arts world as well, since we've been under this pandemic. And everybody, all the institutions, all the big singers, all the big wigs, whoever you are, this one little virus humbled everybody and put everybody on the same plane.
Yeah.
And one of the major issues that has arisen, of course, was about diversity and inclusion and really what that actually means. And Lisa B. Lewis, God bless her, she's been in the gestation period of having Omnium in her consciousness for quite some time. She said she always wanted to do it, and when everything fell apart, she said, "This is what we're going to do. I'm going to do this." And so she invited me, myself, and others to join her in putting this together. And she's done all the wonderful groundwork. It's a great idea. Omnium, the word speaks for itself. It's basically it screams diversity and inclusion for all. And so her vision is to explore not only the racial dynamics and the different the wonderful different colors of humanity, but also the abilities. We have circus artists who are confined to wheelchairs, who don't have legs, but who are extraordinary, who may be blind, who may be deaf. It will deal with orientations and things like that. I think it's pushing the circus as a genre into its best self, into what it has always boasted to be about. And in many respects, if you compare it to any other society, it is, in my opinion, the ideal society. It is the ideal society. However, human beings are fragile, and we are imperfect. So unfortunately, certain ills penetrate our walls too, or our tents.
Yeah.
And so I think Lisa B. Lewis with Omnium, a Bold News Circus, is attempting to really uh, push the conversation forward into making circus truly what it has always boasted to be. And I think it's a brilliant idea in that it goes beyond the sappy or representation matters, which it does. But on just a very human level, it matters that we all are at least exposed to our possibilities. This is
Yeah.
nurturing for all of us because it brings us out of our own prejudices. Even if you're in one of these groups who are usually the ones getting their behinds kicked,
Hmm.
everybody's got a little bigotry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's got a little prejudice.
Yeah.
Everybody is,
And we
everybody's got
discover them as we go along. And I think the main thing is is to see them,
Mhm.
and to suddenly go, oh, I see this now. I didn't see it before. And how can I adjust? You know?
Exactly.
And
It's
also
like a virus.
I feel like it's a love thing. Like we have to have love for one another rather than like point out like, oh, you just offended me there. It has to be like, I wanted to let you know when you did this, this is how I felt. And now, and then the other person has a chance to say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to do it a different way, because
Well, it's love in its truest sense. We forget love is a verb.
yeah,
We forget love is a verb, and so love is really what you do. It's
yeah,
not that sappy romantic stuff you see at the wedding, and then 9 months later you want a divorce.
yeah,
It's really it's getting in there and working. Love endures all things.
hmm,
I don't know if you've ever endured something, but
hmm,
it takes a lot. It
yeah,
takes a lot out of you, and it challenges you. It breaks you. It makes you look at things about yourself that you otherwise may not have wanted to. And I mean, through my life, I tell you what, I'll give you a personal a story with me in 2008. I remember when it happened, when I discovered I had misogynistic tendencies. And I was like, it was shocking to me.
yeah,
Nobody called me out. Nobody had to tell me. It wasn't because my daughter was about to be born and all that sappy stuff you hear guys say.
yeah,
I was watching then Senator Hillary Clinton debate then candidate for president, Senator Barack Obama. And I was watching these debates quite closely, and I wanted to believe myself to be a very cool headed, even handed type of guy.
yeah,
And I remember watching the debate, and I made a comment, and I was watching by myself, so this is the high time where you talk to the TV.
yeah,
And I made a comment, and I heard myself, and it was like the comment came out of my mouth, turned around, looked me in the face, and said, "Excuse me." It wasn't crass, it wasn't mean, but it definitely was misogynistic,
yeah,
and it definitely was pointed toward her.
yeah,
And I had an opportunity that presented itself that caused me to sit back and think, why did I say that? Was it for racial loyalty because here's potential of this first black man, or is it really something about this woman? Is it something about her in particular, or is it how you actually see women? And I had to sit with that.
mm,
And since that point, I've really bitten into what are those things. And what you realize is, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't mean I'm a horrible human being.
no,
First and foremost, I acknowledged it. That's
yeah,
step one.
yeah,
And second step is I start going, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now with this information? Now that I've seen this dark corner in me, well,
yeah,
how do I bring some light in here? And not only do I medicate it now, how do I, because this has to be a lifetime thing because I've been like this my whole life. So it's not going to just evaporate overnight. So how do
yeah,
I get some light in here? And how do I maintain that light? And how do I give myself enough grace to know, you're going to trip up because that's how sin works. It's
yeah,
in the air. And so that's what I challenge. I challenge a lot of my white friends about white supremacy.
yeah,
White supremacy is not it's a virus. There
yeah,
are some who hang on to that ideology
hmm,
tooth and nail and will die for it.
hmm,
And they're overwhelmingly most people They don't have the power to be racist. Bigots, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. And there are elite forces that write policy and do things.
Yeah.
Sure, I think obviously there have been benefits, known and unknown, for some white people
Yeah.
that they glean from. But here's the thing: if you have a heart for justice and equity and love, for all and within yourself, the challenge I always give people is give yourself the grace enough to be wrong, to look in the dark corner, and don't beat yourself up about it. If you made the first step of acknowledging, wait a minute, maybe I have used that. Maybe,
Hmm.
wow, maybe I didn't listen like I should have. Maybe I didn't see that. There's so many complexities to it. Because here's the thing: it's not about creating this happy little world where we all hold hands and sing
Uh-huh.
and get along. It's not about that. We don't have to like each other.
Yeah.
Love is not about liking each other. You have plenty of marriages where people are just cordial. They're not madly yeah, those old school marriages where
Yeah. Oh,
grandma and
yeah.
grandpa were married for like
Yeah.
50, 60 years. They don't necessarily like each other. They just they're devoted to each
Hmm.
other. And
Hmm.
if you're devoted to an equitable society where you understand, and this is how why circus is so important, because circus is about that circle. And one thing we always understood in circus, and we understand about circus, is everybody, each one teach one. We're all interconnected. There is no hierarchy. You may
Really?
think the guy in the top
That's what I
hat,
was going to
yeah,
ask you about, if there was a
there's no
hierarchy.
hierarchy. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. I, as the ringmaster, first of all, if you have animals in circus, as a human being, you're humbled already because you're second billing. That's number one. Number two, I mean, really, nobody's coming up behind you to wipe your behind and feed you, and
Yeah.
nobody's.
Yeah.
But number two is you understand instinctively that every role in the show, every role in the company, informs the other. I can't do my job without the wardrobe department,
Hmm.
without the sound department, without a script writer, without musicians, without, my wardrobe mistress who comes and checks on every stinking thread, or my voice coach who,
Yeah.
hey, you need a tweak. I can't do my job. My float driver can't do his or her job, without the people from the corporate office who actually built that machine, who educate them on how to operate that machine. None of us can make a move without that crew.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody's not wiping that dung all up in the right time, somebody may slip. There's so many things that go into making this happen that it's that circle. And I've worked with people who, quite frankly, as human beings, I do not like them.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And it's not like we ever hung out, but I could depend on them.
Yeah.
I could depend on them because our devotion was to the show, not to each other.
Hmm.
We could hate each other's guts. In fact, I'll give you a funny story.
Mm.
This was the most professional thing I ever saw in my life. There was there was this wonderful show we had called Dragons,
Uh-huh.
and we had Shaolin martial artists,
Yeah. Oh,
the real
wow.
thing.
No,
These
really?
guys,
Oh, wow.
like, I mean, I said, "Ooh, boy, I wanted to take them to a club or something to get in the fight on purpose." But these guys were the real thing.
Yeah.
So there were two. They also hired these two other martial artists who were sort of the same vein as they weren't necessarily of Shaolin school, but they were award-winning badasses. Put it that
Yeah.
way. So they worked together. They had an act that they did together. These two guys had a mortal hatred for each other. I'm talking, it was deep. I mean, there was at the beginning of the tour, a fight broke out between them backstage. Now, we're normal non-martial art fighting
A
people.
fight
These are
broke out.
walking actors.
Oh
I
my
don't know.
God.
So we had to call in the Shaolin guys to help
Yeah.
that thing up.
Yeah.
Because what were we gonna do? These
Yeah.
guys kill you with a pinky finger. So somehow, some way, for that 2-year tour. Remember, this fight happened in the beginning of the tour.
Yeah.
They that 2-year tour, these guys, straight laced, never missed a show, got it on. Every time they came out, You would have thought they were best friends.
Really?
You would have thought they hung out with each other, and I mean, it was. But that's it. They just, you know. But they were partners. They had to work with each other to make this act what it was, and it was a thrilling act. It was a great act, and for the sake of the show, for their devotion to the show, they took the few minutes they were out there. They were the best of friends, and that's what I'm talking about
Yeah,
when it
that's
comes to
professionalism.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can do that in society. We don't have to. We don't have to like each other. We don't even have to live in the same neighborhood.
I mean,
But
I call
just
it
want to say,
civilization. Like we're in a civilization, and we either move towards being more civilized and creating a better civilization, or we move towards destruction of this civilization.
right?
It's one or the other. And so when people are like saying, "Well, this person said this back in 1972 and now," but hopefully they're evolving with the civilization now, and hopefully they've changed their mind. The only problem I have is where people are just in denial of what they've said. They can't look at themselves. They can't apologize. They can't. That's where the problem lies. But if we're all moving towards a better civilization, and maybe some things that were not acceptable, or that were acceptable, say in the 70s or 80s, and are not acceptable now, we can adjust because we're moving towards a better civilization. That's all it is.
Well, we're
know?
in a crossroads, right? We're at
Yeah.
a crossroads now, and we're seeing it very. It's so blatant,
Yeah.
what's happening. And I'm not getting political or anything, but I hope people are using it as a time
me
of
too.
self-reflection, and because it's really about the whole. I've been in those situations, in
Yeah.
a show with people. I just literally, man, we were feuding. I couldn't stand, but we got out there in the show, and you would have thought we were the best things ever.
Yeah.
It's called professionalism. It's
Yeah.
called circus. It's what it is. But my hope is that we can start applying that same reason
Yeah.
to society as a whole, because here's what we understood instinctively. I may not like you, but if I get out here
Mhm.
and bring that to this show, we're all doomed.
Yeah, we're all going to suffer.
Right.
Yeah. The audience is going to suffer. We're going to suffer. We need to learn how to work together, regardless of our feelings. We're going to have all kinds of feelings, and people are going to, say the wrong thing, or people are going to do the wrong thing, or step on somebody's toes. But we have to go, okay, how can we make this work? And
that's all
we're doing.
To.
Yeah. That's all.
That's all we can ever ask people to
I
do
think
is
that one of the biggest dangers in this world right now is the need to be right.
Yeah.
Because it's all, there are these groups of people just going, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. Wait a minute. We probably all want the same thing.
Well, what's sad is it's moved into a place now where it's even beyond that.
Yeah.
It's just, I want my way. It doesn't even matter.
I want to win. That's the scariest thing. I want to win.
You've
It's
got
like,
people.
God, we're not in a competition. We're all living here together.
And they don't care. And you have people like to listen. I'm a realist, right?
Yeah.
So some of us just have to die in the desert. And we're not all made for the promised land. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I think we do ourselves a disservice trying to save everybody. You can't.
Yeah.
Some people literally have committed themselves to a deplorable place that will kill all of us. And for the sake of the whole, we have to let them drown. And that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
That
Well, I mean, if
doesn't
they're
sound
not
very-
willing to swim, what's our option? Lifeguards, the first thing they teach you as a lifeguard is how not to drown when you're saving somebody.
Right. And because you'll have people who will bring you down
Bring you
with them.
down. Yeah.
And they intend to do it.
Yeah.
And so we have to ask ourselves, well, I mean, we have to employ some self-preservation in that, because we can't sit here tolerating everything.
Yeah.
You can't tolerate everything. We have to think of, I think that's what it is. We have to get to a place where our society, everyone, see, this is why fairness matters, because if everyone can feel as much as possible that they have a stake in society, they have a stake in this nation, They have a stake in this world that they live in. Well, it's amazing what you'll put up with to maintain it then, but that's why oppression is such an evil, and the racism and the isms and all those things that have actual policies attached to them that upend people, that cut people's legs off. That's why they're so evil, because it makes people's stake in society so much lesser than what it should be. And therefore you get worn down from the horrors of oppression to the point where you don't care anymore. And that's how you end up probably making these people who just, they don't care, and suddenly they turn on you.
Yeah.
And
that becomes the de-civilization of the society, because it's just like, okay, I'm not, this is not serving me. I'm going to just try and destroy it.
There you go. There you go. And so that's, my hope is we put a little circus in our lives.
Yeah.
I want this, I want people to really take in the message of Omnium, even if you never see a show.
Yeah.
Obviously, I want us to tour all over the world. I hope when we come out of this, we'll have the funding and the wherewithal and know-how and the manpower and the woman power to take the show, to the four corners of the earth.
Yeah.
Because I love the message of circus, because listen, the sermon of circus is preached without words. Here you are, we're dazzled by people of many different nations and tongues and colors and abilities and different lifestyles. I joke with people all the time. Like, how many times do you think a trapeze artist, a flying trapeze artist, 30 feet in the air, about to leap in midair, looking at the catcher, how many times do you think they think to themselves, I wonder who he's sleeping with? They don't care. Catch me. And that's what it comes down to. That's why I never understood the don't ask, don't tell policy. I'm like, who cares if you're getting shot at? You just saved my life.
This stuff, it doesn't matter at all. We're getting shot at. Oh my God. So
it's like,
so the message of circus, I love that idea. In this show, we've had some circus performers on here, and it just kind of naturally has occurred. And I never really understood circus is almost like a philosophy or a movement or a something that is out to better our lives. So more power to the circus. When is there's going to be a virtual show, right? Do you know when that's happening?
Yes,
Omnium.
The virtual show premieres on December 12th.
Super cool. All right. Thanks, Johnathan. And
hopefully
we'll see you soon.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you down the road.
We'll see you down the road. Okay. That's got to be one of the most inspiring people I've seen on the show. And we've had some inspiring people. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Johnathan Lee Iverson, for sitting down with us and really getting into it, because that was something else. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Kamala. Definitely share this around, because I think there were some topics in there that he talked about that were super important. Thanks, Becky, for being here. Becky Nuanez. Of course, I'm terrible at pronouncing people's names sometimes. Maybe you can help me. So now it's dance break time. The show went a little long today, as it does sometimes. Thank you all for being here. And let's get into this emotional clap from Jose. Let's get into the dance party. This is a song that I love. And we already had the song, somebody else doing it, but we're going to have Soulshine Quintet, which is a group that I found out there on the internet. I'm always looking for these people, and I'm so lucky to find people like Mark Strignell and Trish King, and this is Soulshine Quintet.
Was a preacher's son, and when his daddy would visit, he'd come along. When he'd gather around and start a talk,
how could you not like this song?
That's when Millie would take me walking through the backyard. We go walking, then he looked into my
These people sing
eyes. Lord knows my surprise, the only boy who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
The
Don't forget to breathe.
who could ever teach me
Also,
was the son of a preacher man.
on Monday, we're going to have Elizabeth Croydon back to cause some trouble with me here on a Monday episode. She's going to talk about the film she's been making, Taos, and some other stuff, some very significant things that have occurred while we've been locked down or watching the news or otherwise wasting our time and getting all anxious. So remember, breathe this weekend, dance this weekend, and we will see you on Monday for more lunch therapy.